When I first was going to make this video, it was originally going to be this scathing remark about Warframe players and how they just don't understand, they just don't get it. But not only do I think it's wrong to complain about the player base like that, and it's better to teach, I think it might actually be to do with Loki's canon. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Loki is supposed to be the god of mischief and deception in lore, in real life lore, and maybe understanding his kit plays into that idea. That his somewhat plain and simple abilities at first glance, they seem weak, outdated and underpowered, but they all kind of hide something. In my experience, Loki is far more survivable than one might expect, and it doesn't require forcing yourself to play into mechanics like overguard or using certain arcanes and shield gating, and that's good because it frees up options for you in the long term, because you don't have to use a certain build or arcane, or you don't have to build for shields necessarily. So when talking about Loki's survivability, many might think I'm talking about his invisibility, or perhaps his decoy savior. And those are good options, nothing wrong with those, but I'm focused on his teleport. It's sort of a forgotten augment, and no one really takes Loki's switch teleport seriously for good reason. It seems like just a outdated movement tech in a game where you have Volt and Gorse that can run super fast. Grendel has more interesting movement with his ball form. Bullet jumping, every Warframe has sort of got something. There's no slow Warframes anymore. However, it's not the movement we want it for, it's the augment. Switch with an enemy for 3 seconds of invulnerability. Switch with an ally for 6 seconds of invulnerability. Switch also removes negative status effects on Loki and allies. 3 seconds isn't a lot, and I'm not saying it's going to be the protection you get from pressing 2 as Revenant, but for people that don't want to play Revenant, we can look at what we can get out of this. If we fully mod for duration, that 3 seconds becomes 12-13 seconds, which is a decent whack of time, and for low cost too. As you can see, we can just keep casting this over and over. One advantage this ability has over other abilities is a pretty big one, and one often complained about, and that's nullify bubbles. When Rhino casts Iron Skin, he loses it when he goes into nullify bubbles. This is the same case with Revenant's survivability. This is the same with Harrow's invulnerability. This doesn't happen, however, with Loki's switch teleport, as the buff is granted at cast. What this means is this is one of the few abilities and invulnerabilities of the game which can survive even in complete nullification. This might be common information for some of you, but when talking about some of this information, especially in region chat, it often gets brushed off by a lot of the player base. This isn't unique to region chat though, you can find forum threads and videos of much of the same. If you can give me this one point that the switch teleport augment is a good ability though, what about the rest of Loki's kit? Doesn't that mean the rest of his abilities are useless? Perhaps, but going into this video, I'd wager a good portion of you would have had Switch Teleport as the first ability that needed to go. Decoy is Loki's subsume, and something must be in the water at Digital Extremes. They must love this ability. It's one of the few abilities with 3 different augments. As far as abilities go, it really isn't bad with Damage Decoy, helping you spread some status around. Radial Disarm, on the other hand, is completely fine, rendering most enemies useless after casting. It's the same way Rhino's 4 will stun enemies for a short while, in a different flavour in my opinion. When you break down a lot of other frames I've talked about in this video, isn't it often the case where one ability takes importance over others? As Rhino, I'd guess most of you just use him for the Iron Skin and Raw and whatever subsume. Revenant is the same for his protection only. Harrow is one of the few cases where you might be using all of his abilities, but sometimes some of the beauty of a simple warframe like Loki is having the option to switch out some abilities for something you might want to subsume. Having a free space to switch out any of your 3 abilities and still be okay really gives you a nice playground to experiment. Take away invisibility and you're left with some great crowd control abilities and status spread. Take away decoy and you have great survivability, not just immunity but also being able to do stealth missions or forego any aggro you might have had otherwise. Take away disarm and you have all the advantages from before and then some. Personally, I switch out radial disarm for Jade's Orphan in my eyes. It's a great way to strip armor but also deals some damage and slow. It also pairs great with long duration. You get over 100 seconds of this ability's use. And it just gets better. Everything we've talked about with Switch Teleport is doubled. If you switch with an ally, that means they'll get 21 seconds of invulnerability, and you can switch with multiple of your teammates. You can even switch with rescue objectives, or defense objectives where the defense objective is an operative instead of a standard non-moving target. I hope this video was helpful to some of you that maybe didn't know how to play Loki, or wanted to try him but just didn't know how to make him pop. My main reason I made this video is I feel like sometimes warframes get reworked when no one really knew how to play the frame to begin with, unintentionally nerfing a frame that was otherwise fine to begin with if only players knew how to use them. If he does get reworked, I'd like there to be options for players to let them choose if they'd rather use the reworked powers or the legacy version of them.